Hello everyone, this is Ross from retrodreambeam. I'm an eBay seller full-time. I've been doing this with my fiance Netta for more than 3 years now. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to do something different. I'm kind of answering a viewer question here. They said something along the lines of how did I list 11 hours a day? I was doing that for probably like a few years. They were just like curious how I did that, and they respected me for it. This was a question by Lyman Leo from Spain, so it's super cool. A buddy from across the ocean there. So I thought about this. I've been thinking about it for a few weeks about how I was gonna answer this. So there's two parts to this question. The first thing is, in my mind, there's a mental capability of doing this and a physical capability of doing this. There's like two parts to this question that the answers can come from. So I think about it in the way of breaking it down like that. So the first part is the mental capability of sitting down and listing. Before I go deeper into this, I have about, I don't like to brag about it, but I have about 20,000 items listed, and we have about 20,000 items sold right now. So that's about 40,000 items, and we started part-time in 2020. So I just kind of have to break it down from the beginning, all right? So I think that of the mental part for this, right? At the beginning of the channel, if you actually go back a couple of years, I kind of did a stress test on myself where I listed 500 different types of items within 5 days. I actually did succeed in it. I originally had everything recorded, but then I ended up losing a lot or most of the footage. So then I just did recaps of it. But I figured out while listing 500 items in 5 days that my mental break point was kind of around, I would say around like 30 to 35, and I could really push through to 40. And items number like 41 through 100 was just pure misery. Like I felt like I started really slowing down. I was not really focused. I was feeling like just feeling the pain of mentally doing that much listing, but I did make it through the 5 days. So I figured out my like break points, and then I was really curious if I could actually carry that along for a full year. I did it for about like 2 years. I would say until like last October, I was mostly sticking to about 40 items as an everything seller. So a bunch of different stuff. If I did like a bunch of cards, I wouldn't count that because some, cards like trading cards would be easier. So I would do like 80 if I did a bunch of cards. I sit there in my head. This could be really boring for a lot of people, and it's been boring for me as well. Listing can be super boring. I think back, and what motivates me or inspires me is I think, why am I doing this, right? So the reason why I'm sitting there listing a bunch of stuff is so I can, have a job and support like myself, and all the rewards and even all the consequences will be towards myself. And I like that idea. And I'm listing this stuff to get money to pay for food for like Annetta and the cats and to house them basically. And that to me is a pretty good motivator. So almost when I would be sitting there bored, I'd be thinking about that. That's like the end goal for all this, including the channel as well. Making sure that they're, fed and have a roof above her house, or above her head right there. So that's a pretty good motivator. At least it puts me in a good a mental spot. And then the rest is kind of easy from there. But I also have to know my own, this will be different from person to person, but you have to know your strengths and weaknesses for what will bother you mentally. So I like to enjoy stuff after I've done something boring. Back in the day, I would go to school and then I get to come home, do all my homework, and then I get to enjoy the rest of the night. It frees up my mental capabilities. So I just like doing all the boring stuff. So when I'm listing, that's boring, sure. And I get through it and I just keep going. I know there's going to be some fun at the end of it. I know I'm not going to be sitting there permanently just listing and not just, listen and sleep and then nothing else. There's a lot of hours to the day. So if you're very careful and you plan all of it, there is always some like fun for it at the end of all the boring listing and stuff. So there would always be like a satisfaction for me for when I do something boring, and then afterwards I don't have to have that mental weight on me, and then I get to go do something fun, play a board game with Annetta, watch a movie, play a video game. It just feels so freeing for me. So that's like another motivator of how I get in the mental state of when I'm listing. Sometimes it can be dreadfully boring, but it makes the non-boring stuff more satisfactory. At least for me. At least that's how I think about it. Like, it's actually hard for me to have fun if I know that there was a bunch of like work or something that I didn't do. It kind of just weighs heavily on my mind, and when I'm productive, that weight goes away. Also, I was very curious to if I could, how long I could be listing a bunch of items, and I wanted to see how I could push myself. I've played a lot of video games where there's a lot of like grinding. This might not make sense to a lot of people, but you play like Path of Exile or like a Diablo game or an action RPG. I was very good with the skill set of being able to do kind of like a monotonous task with like little reward. Like in the video games, you get special items eventually. That would be like a cool little reward. And I realized that like listing is kind of doing that grindy task, right? And the reward is eventually when the item sells, you ship it out and then you get the money and then the person's happy. So I kind of figured out, like, since I was good at grinding at video games and doing like the boring stuff that other people would eventually drop out of doing the video game stuff, they eventually stop playing it. I actually enjoyed that process. So I kind of transitioned that into how I thought about eBay when I'd be listing it. I would be framing it in my head in a way of like, I am putting the work up front. I will be rewarded for this. This is all working towards a greater goal of feeding ourselves, feeding Aneta, putting a roof above our head. All of this is just like going on in my head, even when I'm bored listing. And I think a lot of people, at least I'm curious of how far I can push myself with something. So I was really curious, what is my listing breaking point? And I do think it's around 40 items. I think if there's like a one category of items, let's just say it's like action figures or a bunch of cards or like sealed booster boxes or a bunch of Warhammer miniatures, that I can definitely list more, because then it's, some of the stuff's easier, because you're just like doing the same category, so you're in an easier mental space. But I was listing a bunch of different categories, flipping mentally from one category to another, mostly like books and collectibles and stuff. But I'm always curious about where, like, how I can push myself. And, I think a lot of humans can push themselves further than they can realize. And I just like to test myself. So I was just really curious. So this is all like the mental state I'm in when I'm listing a bunch of stuff. And then the second part to this person's question could be like, how do I like physically do it, right? It's cool just talking about all this stuff. So I realized for me that so this could be different from person to person. I lose focus if I am distracted a lot. So I like to have no sound, no noises, no music, no nothing like that. All that stuff distracts me. So I would go in the other room. I would shut the door, and then knows I would be in there just listening. And the more quiet it was, the more focused I can be. I know there's people who focus with music. If that's what focuses them, go for it. But for me, I can't have other distractions and noises. So I seclude myself from the noises then, right? That's me knowing my own strengths and weaknesses. I also would not rush. I feel like a lot of people are trying to rush with the listing. I kind of think about that classic, the tortoise and the hare, the typical like cartoon or the story. And in my mind, the tortoise always wins, which is kind of like the conclusion of the story. I am not trying to sit there and I don't think about the listings as trying to min-max the crazy time and efficiency in that way. I'm trying to figure out my pros and weaknesses, my strengths and weaknesses, what makes me list longer and get the job done. And a part of that would be not getting up. So for me, it's no noises, no distractions, like sound distractions, and not getting up. So getting up a lot, I noticed, completely destroys my focus for whatever reason. If I have to get up, go to the washroom, get up, get some water. So I wanted as much stuff in my like listing station so I can just sit there and just, get it done, right? And then the less I would be getting up, the more stuff would be getting done, the more focus I would be in just, being bored, just listening to stuff. So I would have like my photo box. I would have, my phone for taking pictures. I take pictures with the phone. I don't use the camera. I would have a supply cart. I have a garbage can for little garbage. So I don't have to get up and, go in the other room to throw out garbage. I have boxes to list into, ready for the day. I have unlisted box near me. So like unlisted stuff. I have a scale. I have the tape. I have a little container of like Sharpies and pens. I have everything so I can just, in my little station, I can move over. I'm not getting up because I know if I get up, I'm losing my focus. That's just how I work. And then I also feel like part of the not rushing is a lot of people spend energy on you know, thinking about doing everything faster and stuff. And I think so many people waste a lot, and this could be me too, so I try not to do it. You waste a lot of mental energy thinking about stuff, actually physically wastes your like physical energy. And I know that sounds like almost contradictory, but I really think that's the case. You only have like so much stuff to think about for a day. It's kind of like, think about a task. I can think about one right now. Okay, I can think about one that just drains me just thinking about it. I have a couple of bins in the way in my storage unit. I need them to get listed. Hasn't happened for years. I've thought about it for years. It's such a drain. I should just get it done, right? But that's just an example. There's a lot of stuff, people, where they just think about it, think about it, think about it. They're thinking about, oh, how can I list faster? How many items am I getting done? They're thinking about all these things. And I think the best thing is to not think about that and then to just do the listing, do the task itself. Don't waste a bunch of energy on it, because I do think it's wasted energy. You're not actually getting the thing done. You're stressing yourself out, and then you're so focused on things that don't really matter. The thing that matters, at least for me, is to be listing. So with all of this in mind, this is kind of how I did it for like a year or two, where I was able to sit down. I figured out like all these things, you know, all the mental blocks you can have, all the physical stuff, everything I needed would help me list more and faster, and I could sit down. I get some people probably have like an environment where maybe there's, you know, noises nearby, and I don't know, try to figure out what is your strengths and weaknesses and how to eliminate the weaknesses, soften the weaknesses, make sure you're amplifying your strengths. Like for me, sitting in one spot is my strength. I realize I can grind something as long as there's not noise nearby. I realize that I enjoy my personal life after I'm done doing something productive. You have to know yourself well to be able to do it. So I think that answers most of this person's question. There really was a long period of time, a couple of years, where I was just listing literally for like 8, 9, 10, 11 hours. It was definitely an experience. And I do enjoy, I learned a lot about doing that, like listing that many items and what helps me and what doesn't help me. So, all right, this was more of a ramble. I tried my best to, make it coherent. I hope that answers my viewers' question. Thank you for asking. If anyone else has a question, maybe I'll eventually answer it in like a little format like this. Have a good one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.